All right, let's talk about hearts. Still one of the major issues in the U.S. is cardiovascular disease. So we're looking at heart, we're looking at blood vessels, we're looking at all that type of stuff. So what the medical industry right now is telling everybody, and has been telling everybody for the past 20, 30 years, is that God doesn't know what he's doing. God's kind of an idiot. And he made this thing called cholesterol. And if you have too much cholesterol, it just magically clumps together and causes heart attacks. And so the best thing you can do is not have cholesterol in your blood. And so they make these drugs called statin drugs that damage your liver and keep it from producing the cholesterol like it was designed to do. And so this has been the overriding thing. And if you go to a doctor and you say, my cholesterol is 1 point high, they'll tell you, if you don't get on a statin, you're going to die tomorrow. That has been what's been preached forever from the medical community. What we know about, let's just walk through that real quick. What we've known for a long time is that cholesterol levels in your blood have absolutely zero to do with the amount of plaque you have in your arteries. It is a lie. It has been a lie the entire time. They are just trying to make you very, very sick and cash in on the idea that you don't know what they're talking about, and that you trust them. So let's walk through this. Like I said, we've known for a long time. However, the definitive research came out in 2009. We've talked about this a lot. The UCLA Medical did a study of 136,000 people who were in the hospital because they had a heart attack. And they found out that 75% of them, actually over 75% of them, had cholesterol that would be considered good or within the range. So if the vast majority of the people who are having heart attacks have cholesterol that's within the range, there's two things you can derive from that. One, cholesterol levels of blood really don't have that much to do with having a heart attack, or two, having low cholesterol is causing heart attacks. The first one is accurate. I don't think the second one is, but draw your own conclusions. What we're seeing is something is damaging the cholesterol. It's not that God's an idiot, which is what the medical community keeps throwing out. It's that there's something damaging the cholesterol to begin with. Well, we know some of those things. One of them is sleep apnea. And the reason that sleep apnea creates these issues is because you have lower oxygen all night long, and lower oxygen allows for what's called reactive oxidative stress. Reactive oxidative stress is also referred to as free radicals, and those damage the blood vessels and they damage the cholesterol, and that's what creates the plaquing. The other thing that we see is little tiny chronic inflammatory infection type of things. So all the vaccines that they're pumping into you on purpose to make you chronically ill or chronic inflammation, that is causing some of this. We're seeing the little infections like gingivitis and like issues in the mouth, leaving dead teeth in the mouth, like root canals, leaving dead tissue just sit there and fester. And then all sorts of other little tiny infections that we have throughout the body, parasitic issues, things like that. Those are all contributing to the reactive oxidative stress issues and the inflammatory issues that are creating the conditions that allow for plaquing. One of the other ones that we see is high fasting insulin, which your doctors don't pull because that's actually the root of many of these problems. And you can only fix that with diet. You can fix that a little bit with some of the GLP-1s. Retatrutide is by far my favorite for that one. But you still have to pair it with a diet and exercise. Otherwise, those things do bad. Those GLP-1s do damage to your body. So, which is known, but again, the point of the medical system is to make you sick and miserable. So they're not going to teach you. They're not going to go through with you how you need to have an anabolic and how you have to actually exercise and have to change your diet and things like that. So, again, be careful with what the information and the stuff that you get from the medical system. But that's really where a lot of this is coming from. So getting those sugars levels down, getting those insulin levels down, cleaning up these little infections, the gut parasitic infections, the gingivitis stuff, keeping your body regulated, checking your sleep apnea, getting that under control. Those are your best bets for cardiovascular health. If you're looking for a reason to figure out, do I have any heart issues? CT angiograms, which is a dye study of your arteries that shows us pretty much all the plaquing that's there. There's two versions of that. There's the standard CTA or CT angiogram, which is great. I recommend you guys do them. The other one that we have is the CT angiogram with AI. And the AI that we use goes through and finds anything that's in there. And from the docs we're working with, they've told us about it. They tell us that it's pretty much as good as doing the actually sticking a camera up your blood vessel and seeing if there's anything there. So it's just substantially less invasive. So those would be the studies that you actually do if you want to know if you're going to have a heart attack. The reason that the medical community doesn't do them is because they don't care if you're going to have a heart attack. They care about selling you drugs. Now let's walk through what the statin drugs are actually doing. They're damaging your liver so that your liver cannot do the job it was designed to do, which is to produce cholesterol. So this cholesterol is used by your brain to heal, regenerate, repair your brain, which is why we see substantially higher dementia and Alzheimer's rates with people who are on statin drugs. The cholesterol is your heart's primary fuel source. So what ends up happening is that now we're decreasing the amount of energy your heart derives from foods, cholesterol, to produce function. Cholesterol produces all of your hormones. And so estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, cortisol, like all of them, all steroid hormones come from cholesterol. Cholesterol makes sterols, make steroids. And so what we're looking at, let's just walk through testosterone and estrogen real quick. So testosterone, which converts to estrogen, so we could probably just take all of testosterone. So testosterone is erectile dysfunction, it is mood, it's energy, it's depression, it's fat and metabolism. So getting rid of your fat has a big play with testosterone. Muscle density, and we've learned how critically important muscle is to long-term actual health. Lymphatic functionality, so getting your lymph moving around, so getting the waste moved out of your body. Oxygenation, because testosterone helps the body create and maintain stable levels of hemoglobin and hematocrit, which carry all the oxygen. Back to that reactive oxidative stress issue. So, bone density. So these are all the things, sex drive, energy levels, deep sleep. These are all the things that testosterone does, which is one of the reasons the medical community won't let you have the supernatural testosterone and smeared it as unnatural. But this is also why they want you on the statin drugs. Because if you're on the statin drugs, you're going to feel miserable. So you have to take erectile dysfunction drugs. You got to take anti-inflammatory drugs for your joints because your joints are going to start hurting. You got to start taking something for energy. Now your memory is starting to fail, so you got to start taking something for memory. This is all planned out, not by your doctors, but by the medical system. This is why they set things up the way they do. This is why they demonize the things they do. It's not to make you healthier. It's entirely to make you sicker and more miserable so that you have to buy more of their drugs. That's where it all is. This is why they vaccinate your kids, because we know that vaccinations create 500% more chronic illness and chronic diseases. And that's what they're banking on. If they can make you sick as a baby, they can sell you drugs from the time you're born until the day you die. That's the actual reason. So as you start coming out, all this research starts coming out, and they're like, these are wildly unsafe. No actual research shows that they're safe. And then they start doing the efficacy studies, and they find out that they're not really as amazing as people say they are. And you're like, well, why are we taking these? Just like the COVID vaccine. Like when they put the COVID vaccine out, remember, they made COVID and they made the COVID vaccine at the same time. This proof is starting to come out. So they knew the functionality of COVID and they knew the functionality of the COVID vaccine when they released them. So they knew that the mRNA vaccine was not going to be very helpful. They knew it was going to create lots of problems, and they still released it anyway. So this is kind of where we're at. So if you start looking at this, you're like, well, what should I do for my heart? Get a CTA, get an echocardiogram. Those will show you everything you need to know about the blood vessels, how much plaquing there is, any issues with the heart, any leaky valves, anything like that. Those two studies are really the two diagnostics, the only two studies you need to find out what's going on with your cardiovascular system. Then if you want to enhance it, what's funny is that there's research that shows that higher levels of testosterone eat plaque out of the arteries, reducing parasitic infections, increasing antioxidants like CoQ10 and NAC and glutathione, turmeric are phenomenal for this. Changing your diet, pulling out the processed foods, pulling out the high glycemic trash, that will do lots of good. Doing CPAPs at night is one of the best ways to combat sleep apnea, especially centralized apnea. So we know what causes these things, and we know how to prevent them, and we know how to reverse them. The problem is that all the things I just mentioned are wildly less profitable than making people sick, letting people be sick, and just selling them drugs every day. So that's where the system is. And so if you're wondering, why are we giving hundreds of millions of prescriptions for statin drugs every year, and our heart attack levels are a little bit higher than they were 30 years ago? We haven't helped our heart attack rates at all. And we've sold, like the slide I saw, which is staggering, is we're doing like hundreds of millions of prescriptions of statin drugs a year, which is unbelievable. Now, remember, like every time they do one, that counts as a statin drug. There's not like there's something that's like, hundreds of millions of people in the U.S. are getting them. These are, anytime that they're redone, they count. So that's where we're at. So just kind of, food for thought. If your doctor hasn't talked to you about an echocardiogram, hasn't talked to you about a CT angiogram, but has pulled your blood and said, you need statin drugs, or you don't need statin drugs because your cholesterol says you're good, you need to not listen to that guy and go get the actual studies done. I do studies all the time on people who've had good cholesterol their entire lives. Their doctors are just telling them how healthy they are. And when we do CTAs, we find out that they're massively plaqued. And like some of these guys, we had to put stents in. But their doctor told them they were fine because, remember, is it about stopping heart attacks? No, it's about selling drugs. That's entirely what they're trained to do. And so they pull your blood and they go, you, I can prescribe a drug to. You, I can sell a drug to. Not, this is what's actually going on with your system. Here's how we're going to make you healthy and prevent all these issues. So that's really where this is. So, if we still have cardiovascular disease, heart attacks, as one of the number one causes of death, one of the number one issues as far as healthcare goes. And we know how to treat it, but we're not treating it right. The reason we're not treating it right is the same reason that all these doctors are still telling you that vaccines are safe and effective for your kids and that you should take Tylenol. Because the goal of the medical system is to make you sick and to profit off of your illness, not to make you better. So if you're looking for heart health, go do the stuff I told you to do, and it'll be wildly better. If your doctor won't do it, find a concierge doc. We help people get through those. So that's the stuff you need to do if you're worried about it. Now, if you've had moms, dads, uncles, grandparents die of heart attacks, or they've had plaqued out arteries, you need to go get these studies done. Especially if you're eating, if you're not eating super clean, if you snore at night, if you're tired in the middle of the day, if your testosterone levels are low, all those things. So these are just routine studies we should be doing that we're not. But again, routine studies saves lives. They don't sell drugs. So if you guys have any questions, hit us up, questions@chalmerswellness.com, or drop them in the comments. I'll talk to you guys later. Have a fabulous day.